Good morning. It is January the 17th, a Saturday. Um, it's a really lovely morning out there. Some little birds that have been very noisy and now uh, they're quiet. They must be having a drink. Um, this feels like it's been a long time coming, this video. It was around a year ago that I started to record daily um, videos called Writing My Untitled Novel Every Day. And I started it just before Christmas of 2017. And the plan was to have a 2 year structure, a 2 year timeline to work throughout 2018 and 2019 with the goal of finishing the book by December of 2019. And my goal was to write every day and to record this blog every day. And the idea of writing every day was I kept telling myself, I had a mantra that the first day that you don't write will be the day that the novel never gets finished. And I wanted to record myself blogging about it every day um, because I felt like it would hold myself really accountable to being reflective and talking about it and making and having, I think, just having a very external way of being able to say things out loud um, to myself, but also in this format where it feels like a bit of public accountability and receptivity in that I think when you're writing, you just have a lot of words that are always on the page and in your head going back and forth, and you need to say stuff out loud, or I think you can go a little crazy. Um, and so that's what this was for, and it was very successful for me every morning that I did it. And I think I knew, and I kept saying to myself and some of those around me who I was talking to about the project, so I can't miss a day because the first day I miss will be that excuse to not necessarily need to do it every day. And if you don't do it every day, then you don't do it every second day, and you don't do it once a week, and months go by. And while I never took my eyes off the novel and what it was, um, I do know that and I can remember the first day that I didn't write, and I blogged about it, and maybe one of the last videos, I haven't actually checked the YouTube videos that I've recorded on this topic, but um, I told myself that a break was going to be good to help me settle things in my brain with regards to the story. And there's no doubt that that can be true, that the brain does need time away from something in order to rest and do some subconscious processing to then see things in a new light. But it was also the end of the success that I'd had up to that point. And for the rest of the year, I allowed busyness to creep in, and it was an extremely busy year. There's no doubt there were days that, it just seemed impossible to find a pocket of time. And yet I did find time for other things, some of which were great. I got extremely healthy throughout the year through early morning gym visits, which was when I would have otherwise been writing, I think, which was a decision that I made at one point, that when I stopped writing every day, I did start going to the gym every day, which was, again, great. And I don't regret that at all, but it's the things that you make time for and the choices that you make. And like I said earlier, I've never taken my eyes off completing the novel, and I've written a great deal of the book, And even though I stopped blogging about it, I didn't really stop writing. I wasn't doing it every day, um, but there were periods there where I was getting a lot of words in, um, which was great, and I'm really thankful for that because it's given me lots of things. I mean, it gave me the confidence to know that I could do what I wanted to do in a particular style that I found very interesting, um, and that I was really happy with it. I was really happy with the writing, and I could see it coming together. I think though what has changed in the past 2 months is that I'm no longer satisfied with hard to say out loud. I'm no longer satisfied with the original plan that I had for the novel because I started to think it could be something much more. Um, and it's a tricky thing because I know pivoting in this way from one idea to another can be just an excuse to say, well, I couldn't finish the thing that I started, so I'm going to evolve it into something else. So you get all the energy of feeling like you've restarted something and you've got that initial startup momentum, and then you let it fizzle out, and then you say, I'm just going to turn that into something else, or I'll shelve that and do something else and come back to it, and you never come back to it. Um, so I don't feel that's what's happening here. I'm really happy about where it's heading and what it's turning into. I think the clearest way to explicate where I feel it's at and why it got to this point is that I'd been wanting to write a novel, and not just, and maybe now's the time to say not just a novel, but I wanted to write novels. I wanted to write stories in a particular vein, and I thought it would be a lifestyle, and I do. I think it's the lifestyle that I want to create is one of daily writing, just like going for daily walks and daily time with family. In terms of what I want to fill my life with, uh, and what I really value, and what makes me feel really good, is to write each day, um, and hopefully to end up with things that are able to be shared, and can grow and get better, and to build a body of work that reflects thoughts and experiences that are ones that I've generated and can look at and enjoy and talk through with others, and have that record, have that record of a life lived and thoughts that have been put down in that way. So, pardon me. So when I went into writing Beach Surgery, a complicated surgery will take place on the beach tonight. I've shortened in my mind to Beach Surgery when I talk about it. I hadn't tried to write for quite a while. I'd been really busy with work and other things. And while I had written little essays and little things here and there, I hadn't given much attention to fiction. And while I'd never stopped reading fiction, I had slowed down a lot in what I was reading, and the intense passion that I once had for it, um, I felt had sublimated beneath work patterns. Um, and what I did when I started Beach Surgery was I had been through a couple of months where my brain was being reset and had time to rest and become refreshed on art and music and books and all sorts of things that I was just really inspired again. It felt like when I was at university and had just come out of high school and was sitting in the big library there at the University of Newcastle, the Archimedes Library, and just finding books on the shelves and sitting down and reading these books and thinking, oh my, this is incredible. And that would lead you to another book and another book. And then you'd watch movies and hear new songs. And you just feel like there's a lot of electricity firing inside the brain that's showing you all sorts of new wonderful things. And that's how I felt in around October 2017. And I'd had a couple of weeks off work, having had some sinus surgery. And there's a cat behind the camera that I'm worried is going to knock it. We'll keep going. And so I'd had that time to just really refresh and see things anew. And like I said, to be re-inspired by things. So I came up with this idea of a novel that came suddenly and really easily. And I mean, the moment that I had some idea of the book is really when I started to blog about it and started to build up the structure and the worldview and the language and, you know, all the videos that I've got from late 2017, early 2018 are all those really formative stages of wondering about the book and starting to turn it into something new. This cat's going to knock something over. And so well, I think what I'm trying to say is I didn't have incredibly grand plans for the novel. I just had an idea for a story that then gestated and created something that I was really happy with and really excited about, with these characters and this whole world story that I just thought was so cool and still do think is very cool. And that hasn't been lost. But what has happened is that I've discovered again just how much I like really good books. And I was worried that what I was writing was going to be a bit of a pastiche and a bit of a, I don't know, just a bit of a lowball entry into something that I wanted to be so much more. And I started again to read some really good books and was comparing it to what I was writing. And it wasn't that the subject matter or the topic wasn't necessarily good, but I felt like the voice that I was using was doing things that I didn't want it to do. Particularly, I started to feel like I was doing that thing where you set up your own little stage, your own little theatrical stage in a novel, and you move your little characters around, and it all felt very artificial. It felt like a lie of a style, which is most novels. I mean, almost every novel is. Certainly, you know, fiction is fiction, but it felt too omnipresent and too again too much of moving characters around on a stage in a way that felt very artificial and didn't reflect what I wanted writing to be. And what I want writing to be for me is a blend of really authentic lived experience and thoughts on top of that can poetically turn into more fantastical realizations, but they do need to be wedded to autobiographical considerations. And I mean, I think I listened to quite a few essays on literature and presentations that really made a big influence on me, which is tricky in one respect because you don't just want to be taken by something that you've heard and resonated with, and suddenly you've got to sort of try and imitate that. But I I it just I think it gave me a sense of it gave me a sense of gravity to what I was doing that made me start to feel really proud about what I could achieve, rather than necessarily maybe what was a little more light-hearted fun before, which again doesn't sound like a great trajectory, but it is the trajectory that I want. I never wanted to just do something that was solely a fantastical, artificial novel with characters that didn't really exist except for on the page. I did want it to be something that was more autobiographical and more lived experience, more phenomenological, um, more psychogeographic, and so that's where I'm at now. Is and I've been reading books in the past couple of months that have just really got me to a space where, well, I'll say this too. The thing that really made a big influence was just a bit of a personal discovery with what I wanted to do with writing. And I guess maybe this is what I should have said 18 minutes ago. um, is I thought as good as a novel can be, and to hold the book and to read it, um, I thought I actually think I want to engage in a much more live versions of this. I want to make it an active document that doesn't just have to be contained to a book. I thought, wouldn't it be good to have um, a book that you could read out loud to people, as not as a theatrical performance, and I'll talk about why I think that's important in a moment, but almost in a conversational way. Um, to read something out loud in a casual way, to a single person or a group of people, um, and for it to be enjoyed upon listen to. Which, I mean, it's got to engage people. Every paragraph has got to hit its mark. It's got to be interesting enough that if you think, I've got no idea who this guy is and what he's talking about. Sorry, not what he's talking about. I've got no idea who this guy is. I'm just sitting down and listening to whatever he's saying, and for the words that come out of that, for the story that is shared, for the person to think, right, I'm following. I'm really interested to see where this is going. It's heading in really interesting directions. This is really interesting, and whether it's an essay or a story in any traditional sense, it has to be something that really carries the engagement of the listener. And so I started to, like, I think I'm circling in some ways here, wanting to mention how much I've been enjoying the novels of Thomas Bernhard recently, which I got through through W.G. Sebald, which was always my a big influence, with the Rings of Saturn, and that idea of a walking novel where you walk and think and put down thoughts, but those thoughts synambulate between different topics, and fiction and fact blend, and are explored through autobiographical and fantastical ways, and some of those things I've been alluding to. And when I started to read Thomas Bernhard, which are these 200-page novels, single paragraph, and spoken in a very spoken sense. They are spoken novels. They're monologues. There's not he said, she said. bits of dialogue. There's not lengthy, rapturous descriptions about particular things. It's conversational in its tone, but a bit more theatrical than what I'm looking for. In that I mean it's there's particular repetitions of speech, there's particular structural techniques that are a bit more purposefully dramatic than what I'm interested in. And what I'm interested in is taking that Thomas Bernhard style of speak, of the novel as spoken, something that you could pick up and read to someone and it would come across as an authentic spoken document compared to doing a reading of a novel. And the thing that I keep thinking is, if Gravity's Rainbow by Thomas Pynchon, if Gravity's Rainbow had have been written as a series of speeches to be read out loud, I think that's the novel that I want to write. Something that's, Gravity's Rainbow as it is an incredible feast of a book, but it's a novel. It's got characters that have their lines in which they say particular things. It's got descriptions, it's got thoughts that are written in a narrative novel style. And what I'd like to do is write a novel that's got all the colour and interest and world that book and books like that contain, but that they're speeches. And I'm thinking, maybe there's parallels to the type of novel that is just a series of diary entries, which I know is often what novelists do for their early books, because I guess they kept diaries and journals, and in that reflective way, it lets you mirror that type of text style in the book. I guess what I'm interested in is speeches and being able to think, well, like if I want, I could take this particular speech from the book, which would be a chapter. So each chapter would be, say, a 20-minute speech, and could read it out loud somewhere and perform it and share it and think, this is a really interesting, there's a lot of interesting stuff in here. It's 20 minutes of, it started here, but it somehow ended up here, and it's autobiographical, but it's also fictional and narrative driven, and just goes in all sorts of different directions. And so that's really where I'm at in terms of the tone of the book, and it feels unique. There's not a lot of other books, if any. There's none really that I can think of that do what I'm trying to do, which is really important to me, to own the sort of voice that I'm trying to write instead of mirroring others. Certainly, it's inspired by, like I said, W.G. Sebald, Bernhard. It's inspired by Beckett, which I know a lot of, that goes without saying probably for a lot of people, but this particular book has a lot of Beckett's play, Krapp's Last Tape, with the layering of memory. Without going too much into it all, because I am still working out parts of it. What I want to do, I guess, is make a commitment here that I'm going to be writing every day again, and making that my real commitment for the year. And I know life gets busy. It's been very busy. It's going to get busy and busier, as is the nature of life. But this needs to be what I find time for each day and make the time for. And the first day that I miss will be the day that this doesn't get finished. In my mind, I'm still feeling like I'm being successful towards working towards my timeline, and that I said I'd have the book finished by December 2019. So I do still have time up my sleeve, and I've got a plan that really authentically, I think the book can be written much faster than it otherwise was going to be. because of the voice, because of the style I'm going for many reasons. And that's important to me because, like I was saying at the start of this video, I'm really keen on making this, making writing a part of my lifestyle in a way that I do really enjoy doing each day. That doesn't necessarily take many, many years to write a book. I mean, sometimes it might, perhaps, but I'd like to think I could be a little more prolific than that in terms of just writing, putting ideas down, making a book, finishing it, and moving on. I mean, I think I used to, and still do in part, in a big way, I think, like what James Joyce did, in that he wrote, just 4 books. What was it? Dubliners, the Journey of the Artist as a Young Man, Ulysses, and Finnegan's Wake. And boy, did they grow and evolve into these mega beasts as he went on. But he's very particular about thinking, I'm not going to write 30 novels across a lifetime. And I do like that, because I do get off-put when I see that a novelist or a musician or anyone in that field has created, like 30 novels in a lifetime. I think, were they all of a really high quality? Did you really think about them all? But in another way, I think there is, and I'm certainly, I mean, my God, I'm 30, what am I, 36, and I haven't finished a novel that I'm happy to share publicly and publish. I mean, like I said, there's been others that I have created in the past that have been small little experimental things, but I'll be happy if I'm able to finish 4 or 5 novels in my life, and I'll be really happy if one of them is any good. So, and even happier if they all are. So, commitment, writing every day again, waking up early. I've got a beautiful new studio space that's very different to when we last spoke, which is just an incredible place for writing. It always was good, but now it's just amazing. So I've got a very comfortable space to write. I should have the opportunity, as much as possible, to write and to find ways of keeping this time for myself. To have that hour a day in the morning suits me best. To sit and be quiet and make it happen. In truth, I would love if I could finish the novel in the next 3 months. And I think I've got the capacity to do that structurally, if I'm able to keep to a daily schedule and I'm able to move through what I need to write each day. I think 3 months could do it. Oh, obviously editing would come later, but in terms of actually getting the words on the page, I do think that's all that I'll need. So I'm going to go back to daily writing, daily blogging, not half an hour sessions like this, shorter sessions, and just to do what I said at the start of the video, keep things accountable and build the words up one by one until they make a book. All right, so that's it. I'll see you tomorrow, Craig, and we will go from there. The novel is back.